There's a Formula One champion who won his title because his teammate died, another who immediately retired after winning because he knew he'd never do it again, and one who literally crashed into his rival to secure the championship. These aren't the legends you think they are, they're what I call the lucky lottery winners, and they're just the beginning of my completely unhinged ranking of every F1 world champion by actual dominance. Look, I've ranked all 34 unique champions across 75 years of F1. And some of these stories are going to make you question everything you thought you knew about greatness in motorsport. This is going to be brutal. Lucky lottery winners. Titles won by process of elimination. We start with the lucky lottery winners. 5 champions who didn't conquer their competition through superior skill or machinery. They won because everyone else had catastrophically worse luck, breakdowns, or timing. Phil Hill won the 1961 Formula One World Championship after his teammate, Wolfgang von Trips, died in a crash at the Italian Grand Prix. Hill and von Trips had been locked in a tight championship battle all season. Hill won at Monza to clinch the title on the day von Trips, and 15 spectators were killed. That's not dominance through speed. That's winning through the most morbid circumstances in sports history. Take Keke Rosberg in 1982. The man won exactly 1 race out of 16 the entire season, but still became world champion. How? Pure consistency while his rivals kept imploding around him. Didier Pironi was leading the championship when he broke both legs in a practice crash in Germany with 5 races to go, ending his title hopes. Gilles Villeneuve died at Zolder. John Watson crashed out of races he should have won. Rosberg just kept finishing in the points while everyone else was either in the hospital or scraping their cars off barriers, winning by just 5 points. But at least Rosberg won a race. Mike Hawthorn in 1958 won the championship while winning fewer races than Stirling Moss. Hawthorn took the title with 1 win to Moss's 4, thanks to the drop scores system. Consistency beat speed. Moss drove the wheels off his car all year, won more races, looked faster, but lost the title because consistency apparently mattered more than speed. John Surtees in 1964 came even closer to peak chaos territory. He won the championship when Jim Clark's engine seized on the final lap of the final race. Clark had dominated the season, but his mechanical failure opened the door. Crucially, Surtees' teammate Lorenzo Bandini let him pass to secure second place, which was essential for the championship. One mechanical failure plus some team strategy, championship changes hands. The ultimate winner has to be Nino Farina in 1950, the very first Formula One world champion. Alfa Romeo was so dominant that season that any driver in those cars would have won. Farina, Juan Manuel Fangio, and Luigi Fagioli were all in identical Alfas that lapped the field regularly. Farina won because he crashed less than his teammates, not because he was necessarily faster. It was like having cheat codes enabled while everyone else played on hard mode. Here's the uncomfortable truth about these 5 champions. Their titles are technically legitimate, but they feel hollow when you dig into the circumstances. Sometimes being in the right place when everyone else implodes is more valuable than raw speed or racecraft. These guys didn't dominate F1, they survived it. But surviving isn't the same as conquering, and some champions won titles that, while legitimate, people still argue about decades later. Asterisk Club. Championships forever questioned. The Asterisk Club represents 5 champions whose legitimate titles come with permanent question marks attached. Their names sit in the record books with the same font as the legends, but there's always that nagging but when you mention their achievements. Nico Rosberg won the 2016 Formula One World Championship, then announced his retirement just 5 days later. Not because he was injured, not because he lost his passion, but because he knew deep down he'd never beat Lewis Hamilton again in equal machinery. That's the most honest admission you'll ever hear from a world champion. Hamilton's Mercedes engine exploded in Malaysia while he was leading the race and the championship fight. At Spa, he started from the back due to stacked engine penalty changes, not a qualifying failure. Hamilton lost at least 50 points through no fault of his own, while Rosberg just had to keep his car pointed in the right direction. Winning, because your teammate's car spontaneously combusts, isn't exactly the stuff of legend. Jenson Button's 2009 season follows the same script, but with even more comedy. He won 6 of the first 7 races when his Braun GP car had some aerodynamic magic from their double diffuser innovation that nobody else had mastered. Then the other teams figured out the secret and spent the rest of the season catching up, while Button desperately hung on like someone clinging to a life raft in a hurricane. He secured the title with races to spare, but those final months looked more like damage control than championship dominance. Kimi Raikkonen's 2007 1997 title might be the most asterisk-heavy of all. He only won because McLaren's Lewis Hamilton and Fernando Alonso spent the entire season sabotaging each other through team politics and Spygate drama. While Hamilton and Alonso were busy having their internal civil war, Raikkonen just drove his Ferrari consistently and picked up the pieces. He won the championship by just 1 point, while his rivals imploded through their own stupidity. Jody Scheckter in 1979 built his title on being the tortoise, while everyone else played the hare. He won 3 races the entire season, but finished in the points so consistently that faster drivers couldn't catch him in the standings. His Ferrari was reliable when others broke down, and he avoided crashes when rivals were busy trying to be heroes. Sometimes boring beats brilliant, but that doesn't make it inspiring. Graham Hill's 1962 championship came down to mechanical reliability rather than driving brilliance. Jim Clark's Lotus was clearly faster and had more pole positions, but it kept breaking down at crucial moments while Hill's BRM just kept chugging along. Hill won because his car didn't explode, not because he was necessarily the better driver that year. Look, these titles are defensible. All 5 of these guys earned their championships within the rules and drove well enough to capitalize when opportunities appeared. But they always come with that asterisk, that nagging question about whether they were truly the best driver that season or just the luckiest. Winning with an asterisk is still winning, but it doesn't feel as satisfying as pure dominance. Then there are championships so chaotic and controversial that asterisks become irrelevant because the entire season belongs in a soap opera. Chaos Champions, titles decided by drama and disaster. These 6 champions won titles in seasons so chaotic they belong in a reality TV show rather than a legitimate sport. The drama was so intense, you half expected producers to yell cut and reset the scene, except this was all happening at 200 miles per hour with actual lives on the line. James Hunt's 1976 title is famous, mainly because they made a movie about it, and that tells you everything you need to know. The championship wasn't won through dominant driving, but through pure Hollywood drama, involving fire, blood, and more plot twists than a daytime soap opera. Hunt versus Lauda had everything. Lauda's near-fatal crash at the Nürburgring where his Ferrari turned into a fireball, the Austrian somehow returning to race 6 weeks later with his face still bandaged. Hunt winning races while his rival was literally fighting for his life in a hospital bed. When Lauda pulled out of the final race in Japan because of dangerous weather conditions, Hunt needed to finish 4th to win the title and managed 3rd place. That's not sporting excellence, that's surviving a disaster movie. Nelson Piquet's 1981 title turned the paddock into a reality TV show thanks to Brabham's team politics and endless controversies. The season had more drama than actual racing, with protests, technical disputes, and political maneuvering that made the championship feel like it was decided in meeting rooms rather than on track. Piquet won through sheer persistence while everyone else was busy arguing about rules and regulations. Lewis Hamilton's 2008 championship in Brazil was pure chaos, distilled into the final corners of the final lap. Hamilton needed to finish 5th to beat Felipe Massa for the title, ran near the top 5 all race, slipped to P6 late in the rain, then passed Glock on the last lap for P5 and the title. The most dramatic last lap title change in F1 history, decided by tire choice and rainfall rather than season-long dominance. Michael Schumacher's 1994 championship represents the most unsporting way to win a title in F1 history. He literally crashed into Damon Hill at Adelaide to secure the championship, a move so blatantly deliberate it made wrestling look subtle. Hill needed to win the race to take the title, Schumacher hit the wall, then steered into Hill when the Brit tried to pass, and both cars retired. Championship decided by what was essentially a tactical takeout. Max Verstappen's 2021 title broke the internet and nearly broke F1 itself. He and Hamilton arrived at the Abu Dhabi finale tied on points, making every decision crucial. The race had everything wrong with modern F1, compressed into one afternoon. Safety car controversies, race director meltdowns, rule interpretations that made no sense, and a championship decided by decisions made in the steward's room rather than on track. The most controversial title in decades. Even Damon Hill's 1996 championship in the dominant Williams somehow managed to have late-season drama when his title should have been wrapped up by summer. The car was so superior that Hill could have secured the championship months earlier, but he still found ways to make it interesting through crashes and mechanical failures. Chaos creates legends, but also leaves everyone arguing about legitimacy. The most memorable championships are often the messiest ones, not the most dominant. Sometimes surviving the drama matters more than pure speed, but that raises uncomfortable questions about what actually makes a champion. Solid performers, good drivers who got good cars. The real question becomes whether raw talent matters more than having the right equipment at the right moment. Some champions built their legacies on being solid professionals who maximize superior machinery without ever needing to transcend it. These 6 champions represent the machinery over driver side of the eternal F1 debate about what creates dominance. They're competent drivers who maximize their opportunities but never had to perform miracles because their engineers built rockets while everyone else was stuck with shopping trolleys. They won championships through being skilled enough to extract everything from superior equipment. Alan Jones won the 1980 championship in a Williams that was so dominant it made the competition look like they were driving backwards. The FW07 was a technical masterpiece that handled like a dream, while his main rival Nelson Piquet struggled with a much slower Brabham that felt like it was assembled by drunk toddlers. Jones did his job perfectly, won races when he needed to, but the car did most of the heavy lifting. Put any decent driver in that Williams and they probably would have challenged for the title. Jacques Villeneuve's 1997 championship tells the same story with different characters. His Williams was clearly better than everything else on the grid, while Michael Schumacher was performing miracles in an inferior Ferrari. The championship went to the final race where Schumacher's controversial collision with Villeneuve disqualified the German from the entire season, but even without that drama, Williams engineering would have overcome Ferrari speed. Villeneuve had the better car, Schumacher had the better driving, and superior machinery won out. Jack Brabham won championships in 1959 and 1966 through smart car development and mechanical reliability rather than jaw-dropping speed. His teams built solid, dependable machines that finished races while faster rivals broke down. The 1966 title was particularly telling when his team's V8 engines proved more reliable than the complex V12S everyone else was struggling with. Brabham was a brilliant engineer and a solid driver, but his titles came from understanding that consistency beats speed when your rivals' cars keep exploding. Hill's second title, 1968, came through endurance and consistency after team tragedy. He won through endurance and staying calm while others crashed around him, but you'd struggle to find highlight reels of brilliant Hill overtakes from that season. The man was steady as a metronome, but about as exciting as watching paint dry on a rainy Tuesday. Mario Andretti's 1978 championship should have been a celebration of American racing excellence, but felt hollow after teammate Ronnie Peterson died in a crash at Monza. Andretti won the title, but the tragedy overshadowed any achievement. Even without the circumstances, his Lotus was clearly better than the competition that season. Look, these titles expose the uncomfortable reality that Formula One is as much about engineering as driving talent. The best drivers can't overcome terrible cars, and competent drivers can dominate when given the right tools. Being a solid performer isn't an insult. It just means you maximized what you had without transcending it. But some champions found ways to win even when their car wasn't guaranteed to deliver victory. The truly exceptional ones turned half-point margins into masterclasses through pure calculated intelligence. Comeback kings and strategic geniuses, brains over brawn. These champions understood that outsmarting the competition matters more than outpacing them, turning strategic intelligence into championship gold through pure mental dominance. Niki Lauda won the 1984 Formula One World Championship by half a point, half a bloody point. The smallest margin in F1 history, achieved not through having the fastest car or winning the most races, but through pure calculated intelligence. While his McLaren teammate Alain Prost was busy being spectacular, Lauda was busy being smart, finishing second when he needed to, and avoiding risks when the championship was on the line. These 5 champions proved that the greatest dominance comes from mental strength and strategic thinking, not just raw speed. They're the chess masters in a sport full of checkers players, the guys who won championships with their brains rather than their right foot. They didn't need the fastest car because they had the smartest approach to extracting maximum points from whatever machinery they had. Lauda's 1977 comeback after his near-fatal crash at the Nürburgring is the ultimate example of mental warfare defeating physical limitations. The man returned to racing with his face still scarred from the fire, missing 2 races while literally fighting for his life, then won the championship through sheer bloody-minded determination. He didn't win through speed. He won through refusing to let a horrific accident define his career. That's not just driving. That's psychological dominance over both his rivals and his own mortality. Alain Prost's 1993 masterclass represents the ultimate comeback story. He came out of retirement after a year away from F1 to school everyone on how championships are really won. While his teammate Damon Hill was fast, Prost made winning look effortless, demonstrating that racecraft and consistency matter more than occasional brilliance. He made winning look effortless through superior intelligence rather than superior machinery. Mika Häkkinen's 1999 title came while Michael Schumacher missed 6 races with a broken leg after his Silverstone crash, but the Finn achieved it through intelligent driving rather than just luck. Hakkinen maximized every opportunity while his McLaren was competitive and managed risks when it wasn't. He won because he understood that championships are won through minimizing mistakes, not maximizing heroics. Nelson Piquet's 1983 and 1987 titles were built on pure mental warfare and strategic thinking. The Brazilian was playing chess, while everyone else was playing checkers, understanding tire strategies and race management when his rivals were still thinking one lap at a time. Piquet won championships by being smarter about the long game, not faster in individual sessions. Here's what separates these champions from the solid performers. They didn't need the fastest car because they had the smartest approach to race weekends. While others were chasing lap times, they were chasing championship points. While rivals were trying to be heroes, they were trying to be consistent. True dominance isn't about having the best machinery. It's about maximizing whatever you have through superior intelligence. These guys could take a good car and make it championship winning through strategic brilliance, race management, and understanding that F1 titles are won over seasons, not individual races. But strategic genius alone has its limits. Sometimes the combination of superior thinking and superior machinery creates something entirely different. Dominant forces, championships that weren't close. When that perfect alignment happens, you get championships that aren't competitions. They're systematic demolitions of everyone else on the grid. Emerson Fittipaldi won 5 races in 1972 and clinched in 1972 with 2 races left. The title wasn't even close. That's what clear superiority looks like when a driver at his peak meets machinery that's perfectly suited to his style. No drama, no last-lap heroics, just systematic demolition of the competition. At 25, Fittipaldi became the youngest world champion in history, a record that stood for over 30 years. These champions achieved multi-year dominance through superior driving and superior machinery working in perfect harmony. They didn't win single seasons through luck or chaos. They controlled entire periods of Formula One through sustained excellence. When everything aligns like this, championships stop being competitions and start being coronations. Jackie Stewart's 1973 title was the capstone to his era of redefining what professional F1 driving looked like. Stewart won 6 races that season, sealed 1973 with 2 rounds remaining, then retired at season's end. He didn't just dominate that year, he spent 3 seasons teaching everyone else how championships should be won through precision, consistency, and tactical intelligence. Stewart made being fast look easy and being smart look effortless. Alain Prost's 1985, 1986, and 1989 titles showcase evolution from promising talent to complete master of his craft. The professor didn't win these championships through individual brilliance, but through systematic superiority over multiple seasons. His strategic approach to race management earned him that nickname through pure intellectual dominance. Each title built on the previous one, refining his approach until he could extract maximum points from any situation. Prost made consistency look like an art form, and racecraft look like physics. Juan Manuel Fangio's 1955 and 1956 dominance came in an era where one mistake literally meant death. For 1956, Fangio joined Ferrari before the season after Mercedes's withdrawal, showcasing adaptability that modern drivers rarely need to demonstrate. Winning when the stakes were life or death required a different level of mental strength than modern drivers can comprehend. Fangio didn't just beat his rivals, he survived them while making it look routine. Alberto Ascari's 1952 season represents dominance so complete it was almost boring. Ascari won 6 of 7 he entered, skipped Indy, and wrapped it up early. Ascari's Ferrari was superior to everything else, but the Italian extracted every ounce of performance from that advantage without making mistakes or letting rivals back into contention. These champions didn't just win titles, they defined entire eras of the sport. Their dominance became the benchmark that future generations measured themselves against. When people talk about what championship-level performance looks like, they're referencing the template these guys created through sustained excellence. True dominant forces combine the best machinery with drivers at their absolute peak. Neither element alone creates this level of supremacy. You need the perfect car, driven by someone who's evolved beyond just being fast into being complete. The machinery provides the platform, but the driver has to maximize that platform consistently across entire seasons. This level of dominance is rare because it requires perfect alignment of driver skill, team performance, and competitive timing. Everything has to click simultaneously and stay clicked for months at a time. Most champions get pieces of this puzzle, but never the complete picture. Some champions went beyond even systematic dominance to fundamentally reshape what Formula One could become. Era-defining legends, champions who changed everything. Jackie Stewart won 6 races in 1969 and fundamentally changed what it meant to be a professional racing driver. Before Stewart, F1 drivers were basically talented madmen who showed up, drove fast, and hoped they'd survive the weekend. Stewart turned racing into a science, introducing systematic approaches to safety, fitness, and racecraft that modern drivers still follow today. These 4 champions didn't just win titles. They rewrote the rulebook on how F1 championships should be won. They're the guys who looked at how racing worked and decided to completely reinvent it. Each one brought revolutionary approaches that forced everyone else to evolve or get left behind. Stewart's professionalism extended beyond just driving fast. He demanded safer circuits, better medical facilities, and proper driver representation. The Scotsman transformed F1 from a gentleman's hobby into a legitimate professional sport where drivers could have actual careers instead of just death wishes. Every modern safety innovation traces back to Stewart's activism in the late 60s and early 70s. Ayrton Senna's 1990 and 1991 brilliance combined technical mastery with a driving style so spectacular, it redefined what fans expected from Formula One. Senna didn't just drive cars, he danced with them at speeds that defied physics. His wet weather performances became the gold standard that every driver since has tried to match. The Brazilian showed that being fastest wasn't enough anymore. You had to be an artist while being fast. Senna's approach to qualifying was revolutionary. While others treated pole position as nice to have, Senna made it a psychological weapon. He'd find speed that seemed impossible, demoralize his rivals before the race even started, then control Sunday from the front. Modern drivers still use Senna's mental warfare playbook. Fernando Alonso's 2005 and 2006 titles dethroned Michael Schumacher's Ferrari empire and proved that youth could beat experience when combined with perfect racecraft. Alonso was the first driver to consistently outthink Schumacher, using superior race management and tire strategy to overcome Ferrari's raw speed advantage. The Spaniard introduced precision as a championship-winning philosophy. Alonso showed that you could beat superior machinery through perfect execution. His Renault wasn't the fastest car those seasons, but Alonso maximized every opportunity while rivals made crucial mistakes. He turned consistency into an art form and made strategic thinking look effortless. Sebastian Vettel's 2010 through 2013 evolution represents the most dramatic transformation from underdog to overlord in F1 history. His 2010 title came through a chaotic 5-way championship battle where anyone could have won. By 2013, Vettel's dominance became so complete he won 13 races out of 19, including 9 consecutive victories that made the sport look boring. Vettel perfected the modern approach to championship winning: maximize good weekends, minimize bad weekends, and never give rivals opportunities to capitalize on mistakes. His Red Bull period showed how systematic excellence could crush competition through sheer relentlessness. Each champion brought something completely new: Stewart's professionalism, Senna's artistry, Alonso's precision, Vettel's consistency. Era-defining champions create templates that future generations try to copy for decades afterward. These champions are remembered not just for what they won, but for how they changed the sport itself. Their influence extends beyond their racing careers into how modern F1 operates today. Every current driver uses techniques pioneered by these 4 legends. The evolution of dominance didn't stop with Vettel's systematic approach. Modern F1 has created conditions where championship-level performance can reach heights that would have seemed impossible in earlier eras. Modern titans, recent dominance, redefining excellence. Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen represent the modern titans whose dominance has redefined what excellence looks like in Formula One. Hamilton won 11 out of 17 races in 2020, 11 out of 17. That's dominance so complete it made Formula One look like a video game where someone enabled God mode while everyone else was playing on legendary difficulty. Hamilton didn't just win that championship, he obliterated it with such systematic precision that you started wondering if the other 19 drivers were actually trying. Modern Formula One has produced levels of dominance dominance that would have been impossible in earlier eras because cars actually finish races now. Back in the day, mechanical failures kept things interesting because the fastest car might explode before the checkered flag. Today's reliability means dominance becomes purely about marginal gains, perfect execution, and having machinery that's just slightly better than everyone else's. Across the hybrid era, he amassed titles 14, 15, 17, 18, 19, 20, to tie 7 in 2020 through Mercedes' engineering supremacy, combined with Hamilton's evolution into a complete driver. The Brit won championship after championship not through individual moments of brilliance, but through sustained excellence across multiple seasons. When your car is reliable and you rarely make mistakes, dominance becomes inevitable rather than dramatic. Here's how Hamilton's modern dominance differs from past champions. Fewer mechanical failures mean championships are decided by tiny performance advantages rather than who survives the longest. Hamilton maximized every weekend because he knew his Mercedes wouldn't randomly explode, unlike champions from previous decades who had to manage unreliable machinery while trying to be fast. Then, Max Verstappen showed up and made Hamilton's dominance look quaint. The Dutchman won 15 races in 2022, breaking records that had stood for decades. The following year, he shattered his own achievement with 19 wins, completing over 1,000 laps in the race lead during 2023, making that season feel like a Verstappen exhibition, with occasional guest appearances from other drivers. Verstappen's dominance represents a new era, where the fastest driver in the fastest car creates combinations that are almost unbeatable. His Red Bull wasn't just superior, it was perfect for his driving style while simultaneously being reliable enough to finish every race. When everything aligns like this in modern F1, the result isn't competition, it's systematic demolition. Modern dominance is more complete but somehow less romantic than the chaotic past. Hamilton and Verstappen won through precision engineering and flawless execution, which is impressive but lacks the drama of champions who had to overcome mechanical failures, weather conditions, and cars that tried to kill them every weekend. Today's Titans have advantages in reliability and data that make their dominance more systematic and less dependent on luck. They know exactly how fast they need to go, exactly when to push, and exactly when to coast because telemetry tells them everything. Previous generations had to rely on instinct and hope their cars wouldn't explode. Modern Formula One's precision has created dominance that's more impressive statistically, but less dramatic narratively. Winning 19 races is mathematically stunning, but emotionally hollow compared to championships decided by half points or mechanical failures on the final lap. The sport has evolved to reward systematic excellence over individual brilliance, creating champions whose dominance feels inevitable rather than earned through overcoming adversity. But even these modern achievements pale compared to champions whose dominance was so absolute, it forced the sport itself to change the rules. Absolute untouchables. Dominance. So complete, it broke F1. These champions represent the ultimate tier, the ones whose dominance was so absolute, it forced Formula One to rewrite its own rules, just to prevent them from winning everything forever. Michael Schumacher clinched the 2002 Formula One World Championship at the French Grand Prix in July. The season still had 6 races left, but they became completely irrelevant because Schumacher had already mathematically secured the title. Half the season turned into a victory parade where everyone knew the ending before the lights went out. These champions achieved levels of dominance that actually made Formula One boring and forced the sport to change rules just to restore some semblance of competition. They didn't just beat their rivals, they broke the entire competitive structure of F1 to the point where fans started complaining that races were too predictable. Schumacher's 2000 through 2004 Ferrari run represents the most systematic destruction of competition in motorsport history. The German won 13 races in 2004 alone, turning Sunday afternoons into Michael Schumacher victory celebrations, with occasional guest appearances from other drivers. Ferrari was so dominant that rival teams started designing their cars specifically to finish second because beating Schumacher seemed impossible. The sport became a predictable parade where you could set your watch by Schumacher crossing the finish line first. Fans knew the result before qualifying even started, which killed the drama that makes racing entertaining. F1 had to introduce new regulations just to stop Ferrari from winning everything forever. Ayrton Senna's 1988 season shows what happens when even having identical machinery can't create competition. Senna won 8 races while his McLaren teammate Alain Prost won 7, but Senna dominated despite driving the exact same car as one of the greatest drivers in history. The Brazilian found speed that defied logic, extracting performance from the McLaren that Prost couldn't match even with identical equipment. McLaren won 15 of the 16 races that season, making the championship a private battle between two legends while everyone else fought for scraps. The dominance was so complete that other teams were essentially competing in a different series entirely. Fangio's spread: 1951 Alfa Romeo, 1954-55 Mercedes, 1956 Ferrari, 1957 Maserati. GOAT versatility across teams. Fangio won titles with Alfa Romeo, Mercedes, Ferrari, and Maserati. Peak versatility, showing that his success wasn't just about having the best car, but about being the best driver regardless of machinery. His 1957 Nürburgring drive, where he came back from a long pit stop to win, is considered one of the greatest drives in F1 history, perfectly illustrating transcendent dominance that defied logic. These champions didn't just dominate their competition, they dominated the sport itself until F1 had to evolve to prevent their level of supremacy from happening again. Rule changes followed their success, like legislation follows monopolies, designed specifically to break up their advantages. Absolute dominance creates a paradox that F1 still struggles with today. It proves greatness beyond question, but kills the entertainment value that makes people watch races. Perfect dominance is impressive but boring, which doesn't work for a sport that depends on unpredictable drama. The most untouchable champions are measured not just by what they achieved, but by how the sport had to adapt to prevent their success from repeating. Their legacies forced F1 to evolve, creating new regulations specifically designed to stop anyone from reaching their level of supremacy again. These champions achieved dominance so pure, it transcends statistics and enters mythology. They became the ultimate benchmark that separates the merely successful from the truly legendary. What makes dominance? Understanding what separates champions across different tiers reveals the eternal Formula One debate about talent versus machinery. So here's what ranking 34 champions across 75 years of Formula One actually proves. Dominance isn't just about talent meeting the perfect storm of machinery, era, and rival failures. Phil Hill won because his teammate died, while Schumacher broke the sport entirely through systematic perfection. The middle tiers particularly expose this driver versus machinery argument. Some champions maximize superior cars through solid professionalism, while others transcended inferior machinery through strategic brilliance. The difference between lucky lottery winners and absolute untouchables is what history chooses to remember. Sometimes it's the car, sometimes it's the driver, but it's always the story we tell ourselves about greatness. Every champion needed the right car, right team, right era, and right amount of luck. Only the legends made it look inevitable.